Section 16-4 work together, we are going to do the 4 closing entries. So each step is one of our 4 closing entries. So closing entry number 1 is closing out the credit balances from our income statement. So on our income statement, these are the only accounts that we're going to be utilizing, any account that's on the income statement. We want to close those out, zero out their accounts to start the next fiscal year with a 0 balance. So any account that is on our income statement, so that'd be from dividends and down, needs to be closed out. So our first one, we are going to close all of the accounts that have a credit balance. So sales, purchases discount, purchases returns and allowances, and finally our interest income. So if they have a credit balance, in order to cancel that account or zero it out, we need to debit. So our journal entry is a debit to those 4 accounts for their account balances found in the adjusted trial balance, add those up, and credit income summary for the total. So our debits equal our credits. So this is the closing entry for all the accounts in our income statement that have a credit balance in the adjusted trial balance. Our next step is to close out all of the accounts from our income statement that have a debit balance. So again, looking at our adjusted trial balance, every account from dividends and down that has a debit balance, except for dividends and income summary, because they have their own closing entry. So everything below those with a debit balance, we need to credit to zero out. So our transaction is a credit to all of these debit balances, credit all of those to zero them out, and debit to income summary for the total. So you don't know that income summary balance until you've added up all of these accounts which have debit balances in our adjusted trial balance. So that is our second closing entry for all of the debit balance accounts. Our next closing entry is to close out our net income. So our net income can be found at the very bottom of our income statement. So we're going to use this number right here, and we need to close that into income summary. So we debit income summary and credit retained earnings. So this amount is the one amount that you do not find in the adjusted trial balance. This amount is found at the bottom of the income statement, which is our net income after federal income tax, a debit to income summary, and a credit to retained earnings. Our final closing entry is to close out dividends. So dividends, we will find that balance in our adjusted trial balance, $12,000. It's a debit. So to close that out, we are going to credit dividends for $12,000 and debit retained earnings. So you can see in our last closing entry for net income, we credited retained earnings. That increased our retained earnings with a credit. Dividends means we're paying a bonus out to our stockholders, therefore decreasing retained earnings. So we debit retained earnings for $12,000 and zero out our dividends account with a credit for $12,000. And that is our 4th and final closing entry for Section 16-4.